The sprawling darkness of the void was illuminated only by the distant glimmers of stars and the imposing silhouette of the Terracan flagship, Marathas. Earth's emissary vessel, a sleek yet humble craft, approached cautiously. On board, Ryan Carter adjusted his diplomatic uniform and stared at the growing behemoth outside his viewport. It wasn't the first time he had faced an overwhelming foe, but something about the Terracans, their brutal reputation, their towering physiques, and the tales of their indomitable princess, put a knot in his stomach. The ship's AI chimed, signaling the docking sequence. As the airlock hissed open, Ryan stepped onto the Terracan vessel. The stark contrast between the human craft and the alien warship was immediately apparent. The corridors were cavernous, lit with a faint red glow that pulsed rhythmically, as though the ship itself were alive. Terracan guards lined the path, their hulking forms encased in gleaming obsidian armor, each carrying weapons that looked capable of leveling a city block. Their eyes glinted with disdain as they watched the lone human approach. Ryan's heart raced, but his steps remained steady. He knew the importance of appearances. Fear could be smelled, literally, according to the intelligence reports on Terracan physiology. So, he straightened his posture, his boots clicking against the metallic floor with practiced confidence, and met their stares with calm resolve. The guards led him to the central chamber, an arena-like space that screamed both authority and brutality. The floor was carved from a material that shimmered like obsidian but pulsed faintly, and the walls were etched with glyphs recounting centuries of Terracan victories. At the center of it all sat Kalara, the princess of the Terracans. She was a sight to behold. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, her body was a perfect blend of beauty and power. Her crimson skin shimmered faintly under the chamber's light, and her golden eyes gleamed with an intensity that felt like they could pierce through steel. Her armor, though ornamental, was no less intimidating, with spikes and engravings that seemed designed to inspire awe and fear. A long braid of jet-black hair cascaded down her back, and as she stood, her presence filled the room like a thunderstorm on the horizon. "You are the one Earth sends to speak for your kind?" Kalara's voice echoed, each word a challenge. Her tone carried the weight of disdain, curiosity, and perhaps even amusement. Ryan bowed slightly, maintaining eye contact. "I am Ryan Carter, emissary of Earth. I come not with weapons but with words, though I assure you, Princess Kalara, we humans are not to be underestimated." A low chuckle rippled through the room, originating from the Terracan warriors lining the chamber. Kalara raised a hand, silencing them. Her gaze never wavered from Ryan. "You carry yourself with confidence, human. But words are wind, and wind cannot stop a blade." Ryan stepped forward, unflinching. "True. But the right words can stop a war." Kalara's lips curved into a smirk. "Bold. But the Terracans have never been swayed by words alone. You will find that we respect strength, not the feeble chatter of diplomats." Ryan felt the weight of her challenge. "If strength is what you value, then allow me to prove ours, not just through brute force, but through strategy and determination." Her smirk faded, replaced by a raised brow. "You dare to challenge me, human?" "I dare to match your expectations," Ryan replied, his voice firm. "If I fail, I'll leave, and Earth will prepare for the war you seem so eager to wage. But if I succeed, you grant us the chance to negotiate on equal footing." Kalara studied him for a long moment, her golden eyes narrowing. Then, with a swift motion, she drew a massive blade from her side and plunged it into the ground between them, the sound reverberating through the chamber. "Very well. Let us see if your actions can match your words." The chamber transformed in an instant. The floor shifted, revealing a circular arena surrounded by towering walls. Kalara descended into the ring, her movements fluid and predatory. The crowd of warriors roared their approval, the sound echoing like thunder. Ryan removed his jacket and stepped into the arena, acutely aware of the stark difference in their physiques. Kalara was nearly twice his size, and her presence alone could have sent lesser men running. But Ryan had faced impossible odds before, and he wasn't about to back down. The match began with a sharp whistle. Kalara moved first, her speed astonishing for someone of her size. She lunged, her blades slicing through the air with a hum. Ryan dodged, barely avoiding the strike. His movements were calculated, relying on agility rather than strength. He knew he couldn't match her power, so he had to outthink her. The crowd jeered, their shouts a mix of mockery and bloodlust. Kalara pressed her advantage, her strikes coming faster and more precise. Ryan evaded and countered where he could, using his smaller frame to his advantage. At one point, he managed to land a glancing blow with a compact shock baton hidden in his belt, momentarily stunning her. The crowd gasped, and Kalara's eyes widened in surprise. "You fight like a cornered animal," she snarled, shaking off the stun. "Desperate and resourceful. Desperation breeds innovation," Ryan quipped, circling her. "You'd be surprised what humans can do when our backs are against the wall." Their duel continued, a dance of brute strength versus calculated strategy. Ryan's moves grew bolder as he analyzed her patterns, anticipating her strikes and exploiting openings. He managed to disarm her with a well-timed maneuver, sending her blade clattering across the arena floor. The chamber fell silent. Kalara stood weaponless, her chest rising and falling with labored breaths. Ryan, equally winded, held his ground, his baton raised but not striking. Instead, he extended a hand. "You said Tarakans respect strength," he said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "I've shown you ours. Now let's end this before more blood is spilled." Kalara stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, to the astonishment of everyone present, she took his hand. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and protests, but Kalara silenced them with a single gesture. "The human has proven his worth," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "For now, the Tarakans will not wage war. We will give Earth 1 week to reconsider their position." Ryan released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He had won, not just the duel, but a fragile chance at peace. As he exited the arena, he glanced back at Kalara, who watched him with a mixture of respect and something else he couldn't quite place. Compassion? Curiosity? Whatever it was the first crack in the Tarakan armor. The fight was over, but the real battle had only just begun. Ryan Carter stared out of the small viewport of his shuttle as it glided through the Tarakan atmosphere. The sight below was nothing short of breathtaking. The sprawling Tarakan capital, Xyrian, gleamed like a jewel, its towering spires piercing the violet-tinged sky. Rivers of molten gold shimmered between structures, a testament to their mastery of engineering and raw power. Ryan couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and unease. This was no casual invitation. Kalara had summoned him to the heart of her empire. The shuttle docked at an ornate platform guarded by a phalanx of Tarakan warriors. As Ryan stepped off, he was greeted by a high-ranking official with sharp features and a disdainful sneer. "The princess awaits you in the council chamber," the official said curtly, leading him through the palace's grand halls. The architecture was a reflection of Tarakan philosophy, imposing, efficient, and designed to intimidate. Massive statues of their greatest warriors lined the corridors, their faces chiseled into eternal scowls. Ryan kept his expression neutral, his mind racing with possibilities. Why had Kalara invited him here? Was this a trap? A test? Or something else entirely? The doors to the council chamber parted with a low rumble, revealing a vast room dominated by a circular table carved from black stone. Around it sat the Tarakan High Council, each member radiating an aura of authority. At the head of the table stood Kalara, her crimson skin glowing faintly under the chamber's light. She was clad in ceremonial armor, less menacing than her combat gear but no less regal. "Ryan Carter," she announced, her voice carrying a hint of the challenge he had come to associate with her. "You have been summoned here to discuss terms." Ryan inclined his head respectfully. "I'm honored, Princess Kalara. But I must ask, terms for what?" The council members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Kalara motioned for Ryan to sit. "The council believes that Earth should surrender unconditionally," she began. "However, I have seen your strength and your capacity for strategy. I propose an alternative." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." Kalara leaned forward, her golden eyes locking onto his. You claim that humanity seeks peace, yet you have developed weapons capable of decimating entire fleets. You speak of compassion, yet your species has waged countless wars among itself. Convince me, Ryan Carter. Convince me that humanity is worth sparing. The weight of her words settled over him like a storm cloud. Ryan understood the gravity of the moment. This was no mere debate, it was a fight for humanity's survival. Taking a deep breath, he began. Princess, you are correct that humanity has a history of conflict. But it is precisely because of our struggles that we value peace. We have learned, through hardship and loss, that strength is not measured by the power to destroy but by the courage to build something greater. Humanity's resilience, our ability to adapt and unite in the face of adversity, is what makes us unique. Kalara listened intently, her expression inscrutable. The council, however, erupted into murmurs of skepticism. One counselor, a grizzled veteran with scars running across his face, sneered. Words! Always words from these humans. Strength is proven in battle, not in speeches. Ryan turned to him, meeting his gaze with calm defiance. Then let me prove our strength in a different way. The murmurs ceased, and all eyes returned to Ryan. He continued, During my time here, I've uncovered evidence that another force, the Zarkans, has been manipulating events to pit Turakans and humans against each other. They seek to weaken both of us for their own gain. The council erupted in a mix of outrage and disbelief. Lies! One counselor shouted. Deceitful human trickery! Another barked. Do you have proof? Ryan reached into his satchel and retrieved a data pad. I do. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and troop movements, all pointing to Zarkan interference. They have been stoking tensions on both sides, orchestrating attacks disguised as Tarakan and human assaults. Kalara raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Her gaze was intense, her jaw set. If what you say is true, Ryan Carter, then you have uncovered a grave threat to both our peoples. But how do we know this isn't another one of your clever ruses? Ryan stepped forward, his voice steady. I don't expect you to take my word for it. Investigate the evidence yourselves. But know this, the Zarkans thrive on division. If we continue down this path, either of our species will survive. Kalara studied him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, she nodded. Very well. I will personally investigate these claims. In the meantime, you will remain here as our guest, or prisoner, depending on what we uncover. The days that followed were tense. Ryan was confined to a luxurious suite within the palace, though the ever-present guards reminded him of the precariousness of his position. Despite the gilded surroundings, sleep was elusive. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and every passing hour felt like an eternity. On the third day, Kalara summoned him to a private chamber. She appeared uncharacteristically somber, a data pad in her hand. Your evidence checks out, she said bluntly. The Zarkans have been orchestrating this war from the shadows. Relief washed over Ryan, but it was short-lived. Kalara continued. This changes everything. If we are to defeat the Zarkans, we must act swiftly and decisively. But an alliance between Turakans and humans will not be easy. My people will see it as a betrayal. Ryan nodded. And my people will be skeptical of trusting a species that nearly brought us to the brink of annihilation. But if we don't unite, the Zarkans will pick us off one by one. Kalara paced the room, her expression conflicted. For the first time, Ryan saw a glimpse of vulnerability in her. Do you understand what you're asking of me, Ryan Carter? You're asking me to go against everything my people stand for. To ally with a species we have always seen as inferior. Ryan stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. And you're asking me to trust the leader of a species that nearly declared war on mine. We both have something to lose, Kalara. But we also have everything to gain. She stopped pacing, her golden eyes meeting his. There was a flicker of something unspoken, a connection that transcended their differences. You're a stubborn man, she said with a faint smirk. And you're an equally stubborn woman, Ryan replied with a small smile. But maybe that's why we can make this work. Over the next few days, the unlikely duo began planning their strategy. Kalara used her influence to quietly mobilize a task force, while Ryan communicated covertly with Earth's leadership to secure their support. The plan was simple in theory but perilous in execution, a joint operation to expose and dismantle the Zarkan network before they could launch their next strike. As they worked together, Ryan and Kalara found themselves drawn to one another in unexpected ways. Their late-night strategy sessions often veered into personal territory. Ryan shared stories of Earth, its beauty, its struggles, and the loved ones he had lost. Kalara, in turn, opened up about the pressures of being a Terrakan leader, the weight of expectations, and her yearning to be more than just a warrior. One evening, as they reviewed battle plans in Kalara's private chamber, a moment of quiet reflection settled over them. Kalara spoke softly, her usual commanding tone replaced by something gentler. "Ryan, do you ever wonder if we're meant to be more than what our people expect of us?" He looked at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "All the time," he admitted. "But maybe that's why we're here. To show them a different way." Kalara's gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, the walls between them seemed to crumble. In that moment, they were not a human and a Terrakan. They were two souls fighting for a common cause, bound by shared hope and determination. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but together they would face it. The seeds of an alliance, and perhaps something more, had been sown. The Zarkan assault came like a tidal wave, swift, calculated, and devastating. Ships blinked into Terrakan and human territories simultaneously, their dark, angular forms a stark contrast to the luminescent majesty of the alien fleets and the utilitarian design of Earth's vessels. It was clear the Zarkans had been preparing for this moment, their movements coordinated with unnerving precision. Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the Argent Dawn, Earth's flagship, his knuckles white as he gripped the railing. The massive viewing screen displayed the chaos outside, human ships holding formation alongside the Terrakans, their uneasy alliance tested in the crucible of war. "This isn't just an invasion," Ryan muttered to himself. "It's an extermination." Beside him, Kalara loomed like a crimson shadow, her golden eyes scanning the battlefield. She had insisted on joining him aboard the Argent Dawn, much to the dismay of her council. Trust was a fragile thing, especially between their species, but she had staked her reputation, and perhaps her life, on this alliance. "We need to strike back," Kalara said, her voice sharp and commanding. "If we stay on the defensive, they'll pick us apart." Ryan nodded but kept his tone measured. "Agreed. But rushing into their trap won't help. We need a coordinated counterattack. Let me handle our fleet's movements, your people can lead the charge." Kalara raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Despite their growing camaraderie, her instincts as a warrior often clashed with Ryan's calculated approach. Still, she had come to respect his tactical acumen, even if it grated against her desire for direct action. "Captain," Ryan said, turning to the Argent Dawn's commanding officer, a wiry woman with a no-nonsense demeanor. "Order the 2nd and 3rd Squadrons to flank the Zarkan cruisers at Sector 7G. Draw their fire while the Terrakans hit their course ships." "Yes, sir," the captain replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. Kalara activated her comlink, barking orders in her guttural native tongue. Within moments, Terrakan warships surged forward, their weapons blazing as they engaged the Zarkan fleet head-on. The combined human and Terrakan assault created a brief opening, but the Zarkans were relentless, their ships adapting to the Alliance's tactics with chilling efficiency. As explosions lit up the void, Ryan turned to Kalara. "This isn't sustainable. They're outmaneuvering us. We need to take out their command structure." Kalara frowned, her jaw tightening. "You mean their flagship?" Ryan nodded. "It's the only way. But it won't be easy. They'll have it heavily fortified." A grim smile spread across Kalara's face. "Then it's a good thing I brought my armor." Within an hour, Ryan and Kalara were aboard a stealth cruiser, racing toward the Zarkan flagship. The tension between them was palpable, though it wasn't born of distrust. It was the weight of what they were about to face, A mission that could turn the tide of the battle or end in their deaths. The cruiser's pilot, a grizzled Terracan veteran, glanced over his shoulder. We're coming up on their flagship. Sensors show multiple layers of defenses. You'll have a narrow window to breach their hull. Ryan adjusted his gear, his heart pounding. Understood. Keep the ship cloaked as long as possible. Kalara donned her battle armor, the sleek, crimson suit enhancing her already formidable presence. She looked at Ryan, her expression unreadable. You've faced impossible odds before, haven't you? Ryan met her gaze. Too many times to count. But this feels different. Kalara tilted her head, a flicker of curiosity crossing her features. Why? He hesitated before replying. Because this time, I'm not just fighting for my people. I'm fighting for yours too. For a moment, Kalara said nothing. Then, to Ryan's surprise, she extended her hand. Then let's make this count, Ryan Carter. He clasped her hand, the gesture a silent promise. Let's do this. The Zarkan flagship loomed before them, a jagged monolith of black metal bristling with weaponry. As the stealth cruiser maneuvered into position, Ryan and Kalara prepared to breach. The plan was simple in theory: infiltrate the flagship, disable its command systems, and eliminate its leader. Execution, however, would be anything but. Breach in 5, the pilot announced. Good luck. The hatch opened, and Ryan and Kalara launched into the void, their suits propelling them toward the enemy ship. As they approached, Kalara fired a magnetic harpoon, anchoring them to the hull. Within seconds, she had cut through the metal with a plasma blade, creating an opening just large enough for them to slip through. The interior of the flagship was a labyrinth of corridors bathed in an eerie green light. Zarkan soldiers patrolled in pairs, their insected forms clicking and chittering as they moved. Ryan and Kalara advanced cautiously, their movements synchronized despite their differences in training. At one point, a patrol nearly spotted them, but Ryan quickly disabled the Zarkans with a silent stun grenade. Kalara raised an impressed eyebrow. You're full of surprises, human. Ryan smirked. I try. They reached the command center after what felt like an eternity, only to find it heavily guarded. Zarkan elites, larger and more imposing than their regular troops, stood watch, their weapons glowing ominously. Kalara surveyed the scene. We'll never get through them without raising the alarm. Ryan's mind raced. Then, inspiration struck. What if we make them come to us? Kalara's eyes narrowed. Explain. Ryan pointed to a nearby junction. If we create a diversion there, we can draw them away from the command center. Once the path is clear, we move in. Kalara considered the plan before nodding. It's risky, but it might work. Let's do it. They set the diversion, a small explosive charge designed to mimic a system malfunction. As expected, the Zarkan elites rushed to investigate, leaving the command center momentarily unguarded. Ryan and Kalara seized the opportunity, slipping inside and sealing the door behind them. The room was dominated by a massive console, its screens displaying the battlefield in real time. At the center stood the Zarkan commander, a towering figure with sharp, chitinous armor and eyes that glowed with malevolent intelligence. You're too late, the commander hissed, its voice a raspy growl. Your alliance is doomed. Ryan stepped forward, his weapon drawn. We'll see about that. The commander lunged, its movements unnervingly fast. Ryan dodged, firing a burst from his pulse rifle, while Kalara charged, her plasma blades slicing through the air. The battle was fierce, the commander proving to be a formidable opponent. At one point, the commander struck Ryan, sending him crashing into a console. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself to rise, his resolve unshaken. Kalara, meanwhile, fought with ferocity, her movements a blur of crimson and steel. Together, they managed to overwhelm the commander, Kalara delivering the final blow with a powerful strike that shattered its armor. As the creature collapsed, Ryan accessed the console, initiating a system override. Hurry, Kalara urged, her voice tinged with urgency. We don't have much time. Ryan worked quickly, disabling the flagship's command systems and sending a signal to the Allied fleets. "It's done," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. As they prepared to leave, an alarm blared. Reinforcements were on their way. "We need to move, now!" Kalara shouted. They fought their way back to the breach, their movements fueled by adrenaline. Just as they reached the exit, the flagship began to implode, the result of Ryan's sabotage. They launched themselves into space, their suits propelling them toward the waiting stealth cruiser. The moment they were aboard, the pilot gunned the engines, carrying them to safety. Ryan collapsed into a seat, his chest heaving. Kalara sat beside him, her armor scorched but her expression triumphant. "We did it," she said, a rare smile gracing her lips. Ryan managed a weak grin. "Yeah. We did." As the cruiser returned to the Allied fleet, Ryan and Kalara exchanged a look, one of mutual respect, gratitude, and something deeper. They had faced the impossible together, and for the first time, trust had truly been forged. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, they knew they had a chance. Together, they could win. The Allied fleets hovered in the vast expanse of space, battered but victorious. The once imposing Zarkan flagship was now a field of debris, scattered across the stars like a grim testament to the power of unity. Ryan Carter stood on the observation deck of the Argent Dawn, staring out at the remnants of the battle. The price of victory had been steep, but the alliance between humans and Terrakans had held firm. Now, the future of both species hung in the balance. Kalara joined him, her armor scratched and scorched from their daring mission. Despite her regal bearing, her shoulders sagged slightly, a rare glimpse of the weight she carried. She said nothing at first, her golden eyes scanning the field of wreckage. "You don't have to stay quiet, you know," Ryan said, breaking the silence. "I'm not much for awkward silences." Kalara snorted softly, a sound that could almost be mistaken for a laugh. "Humans always find a way to talk, even when words fail." Ryan turned to face her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And Terrakans always find a way to fight, even when the battle's over." Her gaze shifted to him, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged. "The battle is never truly over, Ryan Carter. Not while distrust lingers between our people." He nodded solemnly. "You're right. But we've proven something today. That when we stand together, we're stronger than anyone imagined." Kalara's expression softened, a flicker of admiration crossing her face. "You speak as if unity is easy, but you know it's not. My council already questions my decision to align with you, and your leaders will undoubtedly do the same." Ryan crossed his arms, his tone firm. "Then we'll convince them, just like we convinced each other. You and I both know this alliance isn't perfect, but it's necessary. The Zarkans were only the beginning. There's a galaxy out there full of threats we haven't even imagined." Kalara tilted her head, her gaze thoughtful. "You think of the future while others dwell on the past. It's admirable. Frustrating but admirable." Ryan chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." She stepped closer, her towering presence no longer intimidating but protective. "And what of you, human? Will you continue this fight, knowing it may cost you everything?" His smile faded, replaced by a look of quiet determination. "I will. Because if there's one thing humanity has always been good at, it's building something out of nothing. And right now, we have the chance to build something extraordinary." Kalara studied him for a moment longer before nodding. "Then let us build it together." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of negotiations, rebuilding efforts, and delicate diplomacy. The Zarkan defeat had shaken the galaxy, leaving a power vacuum that other species were eager to exploit. To maintain order, the Human-Terrakan alliance had to act swiftly, presenting a united front to the galaxy's fractured factions. Ryan and Kalara worked tirelessly, their partnership becoming the cornerstone of this new era. Together, they addressed the Terrakan High Council, persuading even the most skeptical members of the necessity of peace. Kalara's impassioned speech about Ryan's bravery and humanity's resilience swayed many, though some grumbled about her growing affection for the human emissary. Meanwhile, Ryan navigated the treacherous waters of Earth's politics, facing resistance from leaders who saw the Tarakans as little more than an existential threat. But Ryan's first-hand accounts of Kalara's honor and the Tarakan warriors' sacrifices began to change minds. Slowly, grudgingly, trust began to take root. Twist, a new threat emerges. Just as the alliance seemed to solidify, a disturbing message arrived. A fragment of the Zarkan fleet had survived, retreating to an uncharted region of space. Intelligence reports indicated that they were regrouping, rallying other rogue factions under their banner. The news sent ripples of unease through the Allied forces. The Zarkan's defeat had been hard-won. A second conflict could shatter the fragile trust between humans and Tarakans. Ryan and Kalara convened an emergency council to address the threat. "We cannot afford to let them regain their strength," Kalara declared, her voice resolute. "We must strike first." The room erupted into heated debate. Some Tarakan councilors argued for isolation, believing the Zarkans would turn their attention elsewhere. Others demanded a full-scale invasion, eager to prove Tarakan dominance. The human delegates were equally divided, with many fearing the political fallout of another war so soon after the alliance was forged. Ryan listened to the arguments, his mind racing. He knew that a rash decision could undo everything they had fought for. Finally, he stood, commanding the room's attention. "Enough," he said firmly. "We're letting fear dictate our actions. That's exactly what the Zarkans want. If we fight among ourselves, we're playing right into their hands." Kalara glanced at him, a hint of approval in her eyes. "Then what do you propose, Ryan Carter?" He took a deep breath. "We need a surgical strike. A small, elite team to infiltrate their base and dismantle their operations before they can become a threat again. No fleets, no armies, just precision and strategy." The room fell silent as the counselors exchanged uncertain glances. Kalara broke the tension, her voice steady. "It's a bold plan. But boldness is what saved us before. I will lead the mission." Ryan's heart sank. "Kalara, you can't." She cut him off with a sharp look. "This is not up for debate, human. My people will follow me, and your people will follow you. Together, we will end this threat once and for all." The final mission. The infiltration team consisted of the best from both species, Tarakan warriors known for their ferocity, and human operatives renowned for their ingenuity. Ryan and Kalara worked side by side, coordinating every detail of the mission. As they prepared to depart, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this might be the last time they fought together. "Don't get yourself killed out there," he said, forcing a smile as they boarded the stealth cruiser. Kalara smirked. "I could say the same to you, but we both know you humans have a knack for survival." Their banter masked the gravity of the situation. The mission was a high-stakes gamble, and failure was not an option. The Zarkan base was hidden within a massive asteroid field, its defenses formidable. As the team navigated the treacherous terrain, Ryan and Kalara led the charge, their movements perfectly synchronized. They breached the base's perimeter with minimal resistance, their combined skills proving once again that unity was their greatest weapon. Inside, the team faced wave after wave of Zarkan soldiers. Kalara's blade flashed like lightning, cutting through their ranks with ruthless efficiency. Ryan, armed with a prototype plasma rifle, covered her back, his aim unerring. The final confrontation took place in the base's control room, where the Zarkan leader awaited them. Unlike the commander they had faced before, this one was even more menacing, its chitinous armor glowing with pulsating energy. "You think you've won?" it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. "You are but insects before the might of the Zarkan Empire." Kalara stepped forward, her blade at the ready. "Your empire is nothing but ashes, clinging to a dead dream. And we are here to finish what we started." The battle was brutal. The Zarkan leader fought with a ferocity that pushed the team to their limits. Ryan and Kalara worked in perfect tandem, their trust in each other unwavering. Finally, with a coordinated strike, they defeated the leader, shattering its armor and ending its reign of terror. The aftermath. The destruction of the Zarkan base marked a turning point. The alliance between humans and Tarakans was no longer a fragile truce. It was a bond forged in blood and victory. As the team returned to their fleets, a sense of hope filled the air. For the first time, it felt like the galaxy could move forward. On the observation deck of the Argent Dawn, Ryan and Kalara stood side by side, watching the stars. "You've proven yourself human," Kalara said, her tone softer than usual. "Not just to me, but to my people." Ryan glanced at her, a small smile on his lips. "And you've proven something to us too. That there's more to strength than brute force." She turned to him, her golden eyes searching his. "What now, Ryan Carter?" He looked out at the stars, his expression thoughtful. "Now we rebuild. Together." Kalara nodded, a rare smile gracing her lips. Together. As they stood there, the weight of their journey behind them and the promise of a brighter future ahead, the galaxy felt just a little less divided. And for Ryan and Kalara, their partnership was no longer just an alliance, it was a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, trust, and compassion prevailed.